Okay, we're fixing to look at something here that is crucial to humanity and also crucial to biblical Bible prophecy. You know, on the side of my truck, it talks about how that they will take their weapons of mass destruction, melt them down, and turn them into plowshares. Because of the events that has recently happened over in New Zealand, the Prime Minister, the President, after 6 days, has ordered for a ban on all military assault weaponry. You know, in 2006, whenever I was down in St. Augustine, Florida, and the incident happened in Virginia Tech, where that idiot went in, shut the doors, and basically those people was just a bunch of devoured rats at the hand of their assailant. That was over 10 years ago. We have seen incident after incident after incident after incident that has occurred here in America over the same thing. And if it wasn't assault rifles or guns pertaining to AK-47s or ARs or whatever, it was people modifying their guns towards putting a stock on it and turning it into an assault rifle. The bottom line is this. The Prime Minister over in New Zealand cares about their citizens enough that they're willing to put the brakes and nip this in the bud and stop it before it gets out of hand towards a routine occurrence that is basically just making a mockery out of the American people and the American people's laws. I realize that everybody has a right to defend themselves pertaining to their personal well-being, their life. You have a right to protect your castle. But once more, my right immediately got taken from me simply because David and I was trying to rescue some children out here that we felt like was involved in inappropriate behavior. They twisted it around and then come after me after my brother died, and then because I got bad advice from a Bruce Brown, an attorney up in Union City, I remained in jail for 37 days because of a bunch of idiotic behavior. I don't know how many more children it's going to take to die. I don't know how many more incidences that it's going to have to occur over here in America to finally wake up and understand that we have a severe gun issue problem, especially with all these high-powered intensity guns, beginning with Mount Carmel at Waco of the ATF selling a group of people these same type of guns during the Fast and Furious, knowing that they never should have been sold to the general public to begin with. Now, I realize that the N.R.A. and people like that is going to snoo their nose at what I'm saying and what's going on. But the bottom line is this. We have enacted laws that you cannot drive until a certain development in a person's life, male or female, usually about 15 and a half, then you can start getting driver's permits. We have enacted laws towards becoming available to involve yourself in military combat if you so choose. We have engineered laws pertaining to statute limitations of rape versus regular rape versus two consulting individuals at the age of 18 having sex. We have done all these things based around not just accountability, but responsibility. And responsibility comes in the initiative of people being materialized, adults. Some people can handle certain things and some people can't. You know, you can want to be an airplane pilot all you want, but that doesn't mean that you're qualified to be one. You can want in one hand and poo-poo in the other, as the old saying goes, and see which one fills up the quickest. Because what we want and what we're capable of are two different things. whenever it comes to the adult society, it's pretty obvious that even the adults now have latched on to these inventions of warfare, which are turning it into collateral damage all over the world, involving casualties of war that now we're seeing pop up again and again and again and again and again. So my point that I'm trying to make is this: 2 thumbs up to the Prime Minister of New Zealand and coming down on what she sees that is a infestation, the same thing as a cancer or AIDS or some other kind of problem. She is nipping it in the bud, and 2 thumbs up towards what that she is doing, towards standing up and doing the right thing. This program that I'm fixing to let you see is the new developments pertaining to what has occurred just within the past 24 hours towards them banning these type of inventions of warfare, inventions of self-mutilation or a mutilation to humanity. And it's the same thing that needs to be done, as far as I'm concerned, as far as nuclear armament. So please, let's watch this program in the right atmosphere, in the right frame of mind, in an adult setting, that we can understand what is actually occurring, what has occurred, and what we hope that will stop occurring. But it hasn't stopped occurring here in America, because obviously we got a bunch of people that are being manipulated, dictated to, bullied by the N.R.A. that don't know what the hell they're doing. This stuff should have stopped a long time ago. And our President of the United States should be one of the first people that should put his hand down and say enough is enough. And like I said, I'm down here in agriculture, farming, hunting community. And it's one thing to have a shotgun or a pistol to protect yourself. But to have all these deadly force guns, that would be the same thing if you gave everybody a tank. Oh, you can go out and buy a tank. Go get you a tank. Holds bullets this long, missiles. Or maybe longer, maybe that long. Something that blow a house and leave a big crater. What would humanity be like if we gave everybody, or allowed everybody, to go out and buy a tank? What do you think would happen to society? Or if you gave out certain portions of cyanide to everybody, which basically that's happening right now pertaining to the drug problem here in America. That's a stem off from heroin and all these other deadly biological chemicals that our young children are taking. And also the tool that has been openly handed to our children pertaining to smartphones. There are certain things that people can handle, and there are certain things that people can't handle. There are certain things that they're capable of handling, and there are certain things that they'll never be capable of handling. That's the part that people don't understand. And whenever you get to talking this way, oh, he's prejudiced. Oh, he's discriminating. Oh, he's prejudiced. Oh, he's discriminating. No, what I'm doing is I'm calling it out. Black's black and white's white. I'm being a straight shooter, and I'm not trying to sugarcoat nothing, because what we're seeing is innocent lives being desecrated and mutilated on a day-to-day, everyday basis right here in America, and I'm tired of it. And I really think that there's a lot of mothers and there's a lot of children out there that are tired of seeing it too, of walking around not knowing from one minute to another whether or not you're going to be basically mutilated or desecrated off the planet because you're at the wrong place at the wrong time. And some of these institutions that these people are at, regardless whether it's schools or churches, these are supposed to be sacred areas. You're not never supposed to have to worry about examining where the exit door is, or you're not supposed to be concerned about having to walk in there with your own personal pistol just in case somebody walks into this particular atmosphere and decides to want to do something crazy. I've told this and I'll tell it again. These are signs of end-time events towards Satan rising up in great wrath because he knows that he has lost this competition. And because he has lost his competition, he is making it more devastating upon to humanity in every level that he can. God is not the enemy here. Satan is. We're dealing with an evangelical evil being. And there's thousands of them all over the planet that followed Lucifer. And these evangelical beings are trying to put the blame off on God and say it's all God's fault. No. God ain't going to do this to his people. But Satan will. And Satan is. And that's the part where people need to wake up. Once more, let's watch this program, and thanks for listening.
Swift and decisive action on gun control in New Zealand, less than 1 week after that massacre that killed 50 people. We'll have details on the new plan to ensure it never happens again in that country. Extraordinary. We're also going to take a look at the state of things here in the U.S., where every single day, about 100 people lose their lives to gun violence. You're watching Belshi and Rule.
All right, let's fast forward here.
Wait.
More than any.
Six days. That's how long it's been since the deadly mosque shooting in New Zealand, which took the lives of 50 innocent people. And it took just 6 days for Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern to announce a nationwide ban on all military-style semi-automatic weapons.
The guns used in this terrorist attack had important distinguishing features. They had the power to shoot continuously, but they also had large capacity magazines. In short, every semi-automatic weapon used in the terrorist attack on Friday will be banned in this country.
All right, let's break that down a little bit. The weapon used in the New Zealand killings was an AR-15 assault rifle. By definition, this by Britannica, this is a military-style firearm with the capacity to deliver a high volume of fire with reasonable accuracy. Those things have to go together because it's still a single-pull, single-shot gun like a pistol. It's the idea that they can be accurate with all of those shots. Here in the United States, these weapons are still legal in the majority of states. While there's no way to be sure exactly how many assault-style rifles exist in the United States, the N.R.A. estimates between 8.5 million and 15 million are currently in circulation
Not
in
even
the U.S.
close.
In 2018
Not
alone,
even close.
There were a total of 340 mass shootings in the United States. That's nearly one mass shooting per day. So far this year, there have been 62. Gun ownership runs deep in this country's culture, and the numbers prove it. Americans make up 4% of the world's population, but own about 46% of all civilian firearms. At least those were the numbers at the end of 2017. That's nearly half of the world's guns. And this doesn't just have an impact on adults. Firearms are the second leading cause of death in the United States among children and teens. Every day, as Stephanie said, in the United States, about 100 people are killed. Hundreds are injured due to gun violence every single day here in the United States. 1/3 of gun deaths are homicides. The majority of them are suicides, but the U.S. Homicide rate is 25 times that of other high-income countries. And nearly 1,700 children and teens die by gun homicide every single year.
Now stop that. Let's back up and let's hear these statistics one more time, because this is
accuracy.
This is heart riveting. Put this in the right equation, in the right analogy that it needs to be put in the right perspective. These are innocent lives who have the potential of being some of the greatest, smartest future entrepreneurs in the world, that are being snubbed out routinely every single day, every single second of the day, every single incident, because each life has a value that you can't put any monetary value on. Let's listen to these statistics that I'm pretty sure they're not just taking these statistics and just making them up pertaining to fake news. I'm pretty sure that they have actual data, proof of what they're talking about is in fact factual. Let's listen to this one more time.
Those things have to go together because it's still a single pull, single shot gun like a pistol. It's the idea that they can be accurate with all of those shots. Here in the United States, these weapons are still legal in the majority of states. While there's no way to be sure exactly how many assault-style rifles exist in the United States, the N.R.A. estimates between 8.5 million and 15 million are currently in circulation in the U.S. In 2018 alone, there were a total of 340 mass shootings in the United States. That's nearly one mass shooting per day. So far this year, there have been 62. Gun ownership runs deep in this country's culture, and the numbers prove it. Americans make up 4...
There's been 62 mass shootings this year. Did you hear what he said? 62. So it's actually decreased a little bit because we are in the month of March, which is give or take probably around the 70th, 5th day. Maybe the 80th day. So it has slowed down a little bit. The mass shootings, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, they account a mass shooting as in 3 or more people dying during a mass shooting. Let's listen to the rest of these statistics.
Percent of the world's population, but own about 46% of all civilian firearms. At least those are the numbers at the end of 2017.
What did he say? What did he say? Stop right there.
Between 8.5 million and 15 million are currently in circulation in the U.S. And
that's what they think. I'm pretty sure that those numbers are very, very conservative. And if the truth be known, there is at least twice as many of that 15 million figure of that many guns that are in open population, in circulation. There's at least twice that many, I would say, because I can put my hands on right now almost on $2 million worth of artillery of 2 private individuals within 15 miles from this house. Within 15 miles of this home right now that I'm speaking at, I can put my hands on almost $2 million worth of artillery that I know of individuals that has it in their homes. So if those are the statistics that I know of within a 15-mile radius that I'm aware of, how many guns out there that are stored that I'm not aware of? You feel me? You hear what I'm saying here? Let's go on.
2018 alone, there were a total of 340 mass shootings in the United States. That's nearly one mass shooting per day.
Per day.
So far this year, there have been 62.
3 or more.
Ownership runs deep in this country's culture, and the numbers prove it. Americans make up 4% of the world's population, but own about 46% of all civilian firearms. At least those are the numbers at the end of 2017. That's nearly half of the world's guns. And this doesn't just have an impact on adults. Firearms are the second leading cause of death in the United States among children and teens. Every day, as Stephanie said, in the United States, about 100 people are killed. Hundreds are injured due to gun violence every single day here in the United States. 1/3 of gun deaths are homicides. The majority of them are suicides, but the U.S. Homicide rate is 25 times that of other high-income countries. And nearly 1,700 children and teens die by gun homicide every single year. Steph?
Those numbers. Joining us now, Executive Director at the Giffords Law Center, Robin Thomas. Robin, Everytown research tells us mass shootings that involve the use of high-capacity magazines resulted in more than twice as many fatalities and 14 times as many injuries on average compared to those that didn't. New Zealand has had just one major mass shooting. The The United States, you know this better than we do, has had hundreds. I realize New Zealand is teeny tiny compared to the United States, but why on earth, when you look at these numbers, in your estimation, are we so far behind?
I want to say this. In 2005, I had to move out of Weakley County. Well, I actually wasn't living here, but I had to leave on account of what the event occurred in Weakley County in Martin, Tennessee, whenever they decided that they was going to try to mark me up as me being a homegrown terrorist. At the time, I was living up by Beach Lake, Juneau Barkington Road, up by Lexington, Tennessee. I had to pack up stakes and move and go to a completely different area up in Nashville, Davidson County, just to get away from being attacked right here in this area. You follow what I'm saying? After me going to Nashville, recirculating out my message to the general churches up in that area, afterwards is whenever Katrina hit. Whenever Katrina hit, that's whenever the government done another big boo-boo by dispersing all the cancerous type gang-related member people all over America. They was bussing them from Washington State to Maine to Miami, St. Louis, Houston, you name it. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people was dispersed. A matter of fact, the Houston gangs was being run out by the Louisiana gangs because the Louisiana gangs was more ruthless in their behavior. So you got all these cancerous cells now that has went out throughout society in 2005. While I was up in Nashville, Tennessee, this was before Virginia Tech happened in 2006. God inspired for me to send the 43rd President of the United States of America a t-shirt that on one side was pertaining to Armageddon, the four horsemen. That's related around the seven seals. That's related around the seven trumpets. That's related around the seven bowls. Pertaining to Armageddon out of Revelations. That pre-existing warning or advisory was misinterpreted by Secret Service, by Homeland Security, right here in the USA. On one of the opposite sides of the t-shirt read, "A bloody road ahead." A bloody road ahead. For some reason, Secret Service took it upon themselves while I was working for a dealership down around Antioch, pretty close to Nashville, Tennessee. They decided to entrap me and call me up and come back up to their little headquarters there off of Hollywood Boulevard and get a social worker that worked for some sort of agency there in Nashville to declare me unfit and throw me in a mental institution for 4 days and 4 nights. Though I had over $20,000 worth of work on the floor, working for Sean Cheeks and Chuck Bollinger at a dealership that is no longer there. I mean, the dealership may still be there, but it's not under the same name. Since then, since that prophecy went out, since that advisory or that warning went out, and 205. That's whenever Katrina hit. Since Katrina hit, they dispersed all this cancer, all these lethal, deadly forces all over America. That just added that much more insult to injury pertaining to mixing and mingling. Today, once more, that was right at the brink of 2006. This is 2019. This is about 12, 13 years later. Look at how many innocent lives that has been taken on a routine, day-to-day basis. Just look at the bloodshed that is reeking from the streets of Chicago. That's basically turned into Baghdad. Simply because of a world conspiracy that we're going to shut this individual down by the name of Dennis James Juby Jackson, that is the founder of the Windmill Ministries missions. We're going to shut him down and shut him up. This is the results. Oh, King Pharaoh, towards what that you have brought upon to your own people. Let my people go, is what Moses kept saying again and again and again and again and again to the pharaohs, until they finally, after the death and destruction of hundreds of millions of lives in that area, let God's people go. Now let's listen to the rest of this.
I mean, it's just incredible when you consider the fact that one mass shooting happened in New Zealand, and the Prime Minister and the leadership of that country immediately stepped up and took action and decided that this was not an acceptable thing to have happen in their country, and they were going to do whatever.
She's determined that she's not going to allow for this to become a circus in her country, like the United States has allowed. They're putting their foot down for the safety and the well-being of their citizens. We have not had that type of leadership over here. And really and truly, I don't think we've had that type of leadership anywhere. I give her 2 thumbs up towards what she's doing right now, even if it causes a temporary anarchy over there. Because it's got to stop somewhere. You got the buck stops somewhere. And at least she's saying, you know what? It sure does. And it stops right here at my desk. And I'm fixing to do something about it. And she's fixing to stand up and do something about it. And if people don't like it, they can lump it. That's exactly what the Prime Minister over in New Zealand is saying. And I compliment the old girl 100%.
That was possible to do to regulate and make their country safer. It's an amazing leadership that you've seen there, but you've also seen the Prime Minister being supported by law enforcement and by the legislature, who is saying, we need to look at this problem and we need to take immediate, swift action so that this does not happen again. And they have done that in just 6 days. And you compare that to the leadership in this country, where you get thoughts and prayers and empty promises and you don't see any action taken.
I want to ask about something the Washington Post wrote about why New Zealand was able to do what the U.S. can't. And it said, unlike the N.R.A., New Zealand's interest groups have predominantly lobbied the government quietly rather than threatening politicians with the scorn of its powerful voter base. Tell me what that's supposed to mean.
Well, I mean, I think the truth is they don't have the powerful voter base they would like you to believe. You look at what happened just a year ago this weekend, with millions of Americans taking to the streets and marching in the wake of the Parkland tragedy. More than 90% of Americans and even gun owners support safety and better regulation of guns. So the N.R.A. might be out there pretending that they have this huge voter base that should be considered more than 90% of the American people, but it's a fallacy that they've been propagating. propagating and that will continue to be propagated until the American people say enough is enough. And I think we're there. You're seeing it now. The House of Representatives passed the first significant legislation in decades just 3 weeks ago. And it's time now for Senate to take action and for our president to step up to the plate.
But the likelihood that the Senate will follow suit, unfortunately,
about zero.
Is pretty, I'm not going to say zero, but I'm going to say it's pretty low. Even if the N.R.A. doesn't have the voter base that they claim to do, they have a humongous amount of money. And they can spend that money supporting candidates and hurting other candidates. New Zealand's not in
The N.R.A. should be renamed based around their same abbreviation. They should be called Naked Raw Assaults. Assaults upon innocent lives. Assaults upon people that can't defend themselves. Assaults upon to a society that is reeking towards vindicate me, vindicate me, vindicate me. Oh, massive war of destruction, invention of destruction. Vindicate me is what these people are crying out, the blood that reeks upon to the streets. Naked, raw assaults is what the N.R.A. should be called.
same situation.
That's true, although one of the things that's really interesting about the last election cycle is that advocates who are pushing for gun safety and a safer country and regulation outspent the N.R.A. in the last election cycle. So all of that money that they may have had in the past is now actually dwindling. You're seeing gun ownership dwindling, N.R.A. money is dwindling, and those in support of gun safety are putting more and more energy and time and resources into this. If you look at the numbers, more was spent for gun safety than by the N.R.A. You saw hundreds of candidates campaigning on a platform for gun safety and winning on that platform in this last election cycle. The hearing that I testified at on February 6th, the energy in the room was incredible. The room was filled with students with March for Our Lives t-shirts who lined up at 6 or 7 in the morning to get a seat in that hearing and fill the room. They are not going to take no for an answer.
Right. Once more, you got to be practical in this. You got to look at this in the practical sense. Not everybody is capable of being an airplane pilot. Not everybody can drink a 6-pack of beer at a tavern and still be steady enough to go home and drive an automobile, depending upon their size and what they're qualified in doing. You got to look at the weaknesses and the strengths in people. And the bottom line is, we do not allow for children to get married because they have not yet become developed citizens. They're not adults. There are certain things that we allow for the adults to do that we don't allow for the children to do, and it's based around safety issues. Okay? What would this country be like if everybody had a nuclear device or a tank? It would turn into nothing but pure, mere mortal hell. That's what it would turn into. And this ideology that the only way to prevent a bad person with a gun is with a good person with a gun. I've heard that coming from the president or the principal of the N.R.A. Yes, that's true whenever you look at one set of factors pertaining to the people that are restrained under the laws of, I guess you'd call it being civil. But then whenever you look at the laws of people that are not civil, that don't go by the laws of the law, they could care less about the morals of the law. And these people are so strained in their life and their atmosphere of their everyday occurrences that just the least little thing can throw them off, and the next thing you know, they go off the deep end. They fly off a handle. And because they have the availability sitting right next to them, or in their closet, or locked up in their little locker room, we see now the results of the N.R.A. towards the only way of stopping a bad person with a gun is a good person with a gun. That is just about as full of holes as Swiss cheese. Swiss cheese, son. Swiss cheese is what that theory is. Whenever you look at the statistics towards what is and has been going on here in America since, I guess, the Virginia Tech shootings, since 2006, since I made the prediction of a bloody road ahead, or an advisory out to the United States government that was misinterpreted, that was taken as a threat versus taken as a warning. I am so sad to see where we are as a society, simply because of a world conspiracy that began in 1988 when 9 tapes was sent to the White House and was not distributed and dealt with in the proper form. This don't have nothing to do with Jupy. This has got to do with the message that Jupy has to the people. They was so dead set that they wasn't going to give Jupy any type of say-so, that they would have been over hell and high water around here before they would have allowed for me to have ever had any type of influence in the eyes of society. And thank God, I've said this before and I'll say it again, thank God for social media towards me being able to grab the bull by the horns and get my message out to the general public, regardless whether it be on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, whatever. Thank God that God has allowed for an instrument to be engineered in the degree that I can put out my message to the general public, and maybe somebody out there will hear it and they'll understand it and they'll shake their head and they'll scratch their head and say, so this is what happened. So this is what occurred. So this is what was going on. You know, I still look to this day. I've done a great deal of study in this area pertaining to the nitwits that didn't want to stand up during the Spanish Revolution War that basically took the life of a good man by the name of Davy Crockett. And I still believe that those same bad qualities exist in this area towards a bunch of people that wouldn't support David Crockett, to the point that it hurt his feelings so badly that he had to look at everybody and say, well, you know what, as far as I'm concerned, y'all can go to hell. Y'all can go straight to hell, because I'm going to Texas to try to defend for everybody's democracy. Of course, we know what the end result was. It wound up costing him his life. And as far as I'm concerned, he died as a hero because he went down there to do the right thing. Today, because of what Davy Crockett said, as far as us living in hell or going to hell, I think his words are now being ringed out throughout the nation and throughout the world that, you know what? We're literally in hell now. We're in hell with drugs. We're in hell with our economy. We're in hell with our relationships. We're in hell with the drug culture. We're in hell with our prisons being full. We're in hell with the illegal immigrants trying to cross over the border towards not wanting to be documented properly. We're in hell towards us being $20 trillion in debt. We're in hell. So the very words that Davy Crockett rang out to the Northwest Tennessee area is still to this day ringing out. You can go to hell. you can go to hell. Because they didn't have the backbone at that time to stand up and do the right thing. And they degraded the man. They degraded the man, and they dehumanized the man to the point that they ridiculed him till his temper verbalized what he said to this area right before he took off to sacrifice his very life for our democracy.
All right, Robin, thank you so much for joining us. Robin Thomas. All right, we got breaking news. President Trump just moments ago tweeted about Israel. Quote, after 52 years, it's time for the United States to fully recognize Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights,
yes,
which is of critical strategic and security importance to the state of Israel,
yes,
and regional stability. Joining us live from Jerusalem is NBC News chief foreign correspondent Andrea Mitchell. Andrea, this is a big step. Benjamin Netanyahu has already tweeted his thank you response to President Trump. Give us some context on this.
Well, the context is that since the 1967 Six-Day War, Israel has claimed and has occupied the Golan Heights, but the difference is that there have also been Hezbollah rockets fired from the Golan into northern Israel and has long wanted to have its sovereignty. No American president has ever done this. 52 years it took, but President Trump has and is doing it only 3 weeks before Israel's election. This is so popular in Israel with the left, with the right, with the middle, that this is a big, big boost for Netanyahu and happening right now while Secretary Pompeo is having dinner at Netanyahu's house. We had hints of this. I wrote about it last night on NBCNews.com, talked about it this morning, and again asked a question of Pompeo earlier today at a news briefing and asked him, were they about to do this? And he said, I have no comment on that. I'm not going to discuss that. Well, that led us to think, well, maybe they want to let the president announce it when Netanyahu is in Washington next week for also a highly unusual meeting. He's going to have a White House dinner and a White House meeting just 2 weeks then before his reelection. He was in a tough fight, but has been closing the gap and, in fact, evening things off with a number of very clever tactical moves that actually mimic a lot of the Trump moves politically. The kind of campaigning he's done, attacking the news media as fake news, fake media, and also going hard right and aligning himself with some really hard right, very controversial anti-Arab groups to build a bigger faction for his political base. All that said, this gives Israel the U.S. approval of its military control of the Golan Heights, which are strategically so important. They've been vulnerable. Northern Israel has been rocket fired from the Golan for decades, and it also legitimizes what Netanyahu is doing on the same day that Pompeo went to the Western Wall with Netanyahu, the first top U.S. official to do that with an Israeli prime minister. Again, a signal of his sovereignty, and it really denies Palestinian claims to the same area.
And once more, we here at 291 Thompson Road, Sharon, Tennessee, zip code 38255, we devoutly, sincerely thank the President of the United States for making this move and recognizing the sovereignty of this great nation. That
Reportedly lacked crucial safety upgrades. And you know what?
Literally, biblical Bible prophecy coming true. Why the past 3 or 4 administrations did not do the right thing is the consequences of what you just got through hearing about all the gun violence that is occurring and has occurred right here in the USA. Because I promise you, as a child growing up in the USA, we did not have these occurrences routinely again and again and again like we do today. So it's pretty obvious that there's been a major, major mistake with not only the political parties in this country, but the spiritual parties in this country pertaining to the spiritual world in the church sector. And I guarantee you, you can go within a 500-mile radius from where I am right now, from here to Chicago, all the way up to Indianapolis, Indiana, to Charlotte, North Carolina, down to Atlanta, Georgia, and swing back around through Oklahoma and up towards Minnesota. Out of that 500-mile radius, if you can find 1,000 regular churches, regardless whether it be Baptist, Southern Baptist, Missionary Baptist, Independent Baptist, Methodist, Presbyterian, Church of Christ, Jehovah Witness, Church of God, Church of Christ, Assembly of God, Lutherans, Joseph Smith, pertaining to the Mormons. Out of that 500-mile radius, you'll find very, very few churches that has the symbol of the six-pointed star, the Star of David, either in their sanctuary or outside their building on their property. I would go as far to say probably less than 1,000, and in those 1,000 would primarily be Jewish synagogues. Maybe a little over 1,000, but it wouldn't be too much over 1,000. Now you'll find many Christian churches that fly the American flag and the Christian flag. Then again, you may find churches that don't fly no flag outside, but they at least honor inside their churches. But to find an American church, a regular church, that's not under the guidelines of your practical church, from Baptist to Methodist to Church of Christ to Presbyterians to Lutherans, even your Catholic churches, you will not find a flag or a symbol in most accounts that is tangibly within viewing of either inside their churches or outside their churches. Why is this? Why is this? Is it because they're ashamed of the Star of David? Is it because somebody never thought it through and thought, well, you know what, if Jesus is from there, we should honor the very country or nation that he's from? Why have they not? Once more, whenever you look at safety issues, right now, this airplane thing is coming on. Let's listen to part of this, and then I'm going to let my viewers go.
Costello, who covers aviation. Tom, this blows my mind to me, how they could be considered extras or add-ons, and these two airlines opted not to pay for it.
So think about your car. If you go out and you buy a higher end car and they offer you the options for all the safety features, right? The blind side warning, the parking sensors, the lane movement, or if you leave the lane, all of that. It's not dissimilar to a plane. If you're going to spend a fortune, and airlines they spend a fortune for an airplane, and then Boeing says, we have these other features that are open if you want to. Now, here are the two features the New York Times is talking about, and I can tell you that this is accurate. In fact, the first one is called an angle of attack indicator, an AOA indicator, and it literally is telling you what is the pitch of the aircraft, what is the nose doing, is it up or is it down, does it look like it is in a proper flying configuration. But there are two sensors on the plane, two AOA sensors, angle of attack sensors, one on each side of the plane. What happened was there was bad data from one of those sensors feeding into the computer system. The computer system said, oh my gosh, the angle of attack sensor says this plane's about to stall. So we need to put the nose down to keep it from stalling. So now the question is, well, wait a minute. If you've got two sensors, why is the computer only relying on one to determine if the plane's going to stall? Shouldn't it rely on both?
Right.
So that is an error. That is something that, in fact, Boeing now says from now on, they're going to push through a software upgrade. And when they do, it will take in multiple sensors to make the determination of whether the plane is going to stall. So the second indicator, that second piece of software or the safety feature we're talking about, is literally a disagree light or a disagree indicator. And what that means is I've got sensor number one saying I'm going to stall, sensor number two saying I'm fine, so that the pilot can make the determination of what is happening here. So those are the two features. I know this is complicated. It's very, into the weeds of aviation, but it's critical to understanding this accident. And Boeing says it's now going to make some of that a standard feature you don't have to pay for going forward when airlines buy the MAX.
All right, so let's just understand this business about the pilot training on the...
All right, I want to stop right there because I think we've pretty well understand what they're talking about here. They're talking about safety. They're talking about people's lives. They're talking about the benefit.
Understand it from a maintenance perspective. Pilots understand it from a flying perspective. But there's a lot of argument to say it's really
people either
airplane.
living or dying is what they're talking about here. People either living or dying because they want to do an exchange from point A to point B. Okay, if we look at the basis of life, which surrounds safety, and I worked with the car manufacturing industry for 35 years, being around insurance companies all the time, State Farm, Farm Bureau, Nationwide, Geico, USA, Farmers, thousands of different insurance companies, from the big ones all the way down to the little mama papas. If all that we have ever studied in the past 35 years towards being ASC and ICAR certified is safety, 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 all the way down to the very bolt nut that you turn, to the weld that you put up onto that vehicle that is supposed to be a replication or duplication of what the factory says it needs to be there. Once more, you can put too many welds that will actually have a contradictory factor pertaining to safety issues. So if it says that you're supposed to splice something and only weld it every 2 inches apart, that's what you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to weld it every inch apart, because if you weld it every inch apart, you make it too strong. And if you make it too strong, then whenever it comes to the intrusion beams and the collapse of that vehicle, if it gets involved in a major accident, it's not going to collapse around you in the vessel or the capsule that you're in. If we're that concerned about all these safety issues, safety, 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 how come it has taken almost 13 years till now we have seen something develop over in New Zealand that has been one of the most horriblest events that anybody could ever do, is to go in and massacre innocent people. But how come it has taken less than 6 days for those people to make a decision that we're going to nip this in the bud? But it hasn't been nipped in the bud yet over here in America. Are we playing games with ourselves? You have to ask. Are we playing games with innocent children, people that can't rightfully defend themselves under the atmosphere of a deranged, sick, barbaric, heathenistic act? Or we just don't care? Or are we scared that if we do make the right moves, that then we're going to be stepping on somebody's feelings? Once more, you got to look at this practical. We don't allow for a 6-year-old child to drive an automobile for a reason. We have to allow for that child to become 15 to 16 years old before we give them the responsibility, the right, the privilege of driving an automobile. And if the human society race, regardless whether they be here in America or throughout the planet, cannot constructively, responsibly operate these assault rifles, AK-47s, RNs, whatever, then they need to be banned from the open population. A hunting gun is one thing. A pistol, that's understandable towards protecting one's life and having the right to protect your own life. But to have an assault rifle, something that can cut an automobile in half, and we're going to allow for these to be promoted to the general public just like they promoted them to the Davidians in 1993 in Mount Carmel outside of Waco, Texas. There has to be some sort of reality line of what that we are doing is insanity versus what we are doing is considered not insanity. 2 thumbs up to the Prime Minister over in New Zealand and their law enforcement agencies, as well as their, I guess you'd call it administration. 2 thumbs up to them of trying to nip this at the bud and end this insanity of not knowing at any given moment when the 2-headed calf or the bearded lady is going to come out of the insanity world that obviously our past, present politicians have created all of us to have to experience. We should not have to live on a day-to-day basis not knowing if another major incident here in America is going to occur on the level that we have seen for the past 12 or 13 years. Since that warning was given to the United States government of a bloody road ahead, we have seen the bloodshed in America intensify on levels unimaginable. The circus has to end. The circus has to end. There's too many lives at stake. The circus has to end. The cost is too severe. Father God in heaven, we want to thank you, Lord, for being able to do this with open platform, using social media to be able to get our message out. We just pray, God, that you will open the eyes and the ears and the hearts of those who are adults, who hold the right positions in our judicial system here in the world, especially here in America, that they will make the rational right decision and that things will be appropriated in the right way, even at the expense of hurting someone's feelings and stepping on somebody's rights. We know, God, that all things work for the good of them who love you. And we know, God, that you're not going to abandon us and that you're not going to let us down. We just pray that you will continue to be with us. Forgive us of our sins. Lead us, O Lord, not into temptation, but deliver us from this evil that has been encamping around us, that we are being held hostage to, that we are in isolation of, that we are in bondage of. Just pray, God, that you will help us to lead us, O Lord, not into temptation, but that you will deliver us from this evil. Because there's places all over America, regardless whether it be down in Orange Mound in Memphis, or in St. Louis or Chicago, New York or Indianapolis, Houston, Dallas, Oklahoma City, Minnesota, Nebraska, Denver, Colorado, Phoenix, Arizona, places out in California, Washington State. There's places all over America, Miami, that are lethal, that are unsafe for our children to be exposed to. I just pray, God, for a revival that will revive America in an awakening of that in which what we need to take a part of for a glorious, mighty future to be prosperous and safe for all of humanity. In Jesus' name, in the only begotten, we ask these things. And amen. And amen. Thanks again for listening. Good luck to all of us. Good luck. And hopefully, those that are in the darkness will, in fact, come out and go to the light.